This is a presentation of SBE 15, New York City.
Well, then let's talk Ennis. Andy, it was in your home backyard there, so I don't know if you have any insight you want to raise. It was a successful event. We had 40 attendees, right?
We sure did. Actually, a little more than 40, but there were a number of unreported attendees that kind of joined halfway or were walking down the hall after Kathy had sort of stopped taking attendance. We just said, "Go inside. Let's go. Come on." So I would say probably over the course of the day we had closer to 50. And
wow, fantastic.
As a matter of fact, I had lunch today with one of the presenters, Steve Pardo, who did the audio workshop, who told me, he said, I had no idea this group existed. Have my application for membership in. I want to start coming to the meetings. He's got some other people he works with, some colleagues that would like to join. So, the reaction from the students all around has been, the students that were there, wow, this is something I never knew about. My attendance numbers at the Thursday tech sessions have gone up through the roof. As a matter of fact,
good.
Bud knows this, that I like to, throw people into the mix on builds of things. And I have 3 students working on a build right now. I had a student today working on a project at another location, running wire and cable, and a young lady who was terminating connectors and taking selfies for Instagram up on a ladder, talking about how tech is cool. And next Friday, or next Thursday, not next Thursday, 2 weeks from now, she's bringing her entire sorority down to the radio station because they want to learn about basic electronics. So she told her sorority sisters, and they all said, "Oh, we want to come down." So I have 12 sorority girls coming down. I don't know how I'm going to handle that, but I'm going to make it work. So the roll-off effects from this whole thing have been really positive, and from the reaction of the students that weren't there has been, wow, I think I missed something I should have been at. So all in all, everybody's very happy.
Yeah. We did our part on promoting it. Jeff was very good about that. And it did, from my view, it did come together very, very well, and good content and engaging, and the chapter being geared towards or having a focus. I mean, part of the mission is getting younger talent involved and engaged in this industry. It's working. Thanks to Andy, because he certainly has the biggest pool that's very, very close to him there at Hofstra.
Very good.
So I would say that Conrad.
Yeah.
I think we need a shout out. Andy and Bud and Jeff did a fantastic job. I'm sure you've heard this, but it looked like we did this every week. I mean, it was an action-packed place. They stepped in for every speaker and just kind of took over and kept it lively and asked the right questions. And it was just a good afternoon to be there. I mean, you could be there till 7, 8 o'clock that night, whatever it was, with the band going and things to see. And John Mullen and Andy eager to show the place off. It was like you couldn't be bored there. There was a lot going on. And Kathy offhandedly said to me, she says, "We've never been treated like this." And that was my new take on this, was that I looked at all the Ennis that came up after that, and boy, they're just classrooms with the same picture. We had something going on there by far, 180 degrees, the other way.
Yeah, my experience with Ennis was probably 15 or 20 years ago, where we had somebody came in and did a presentation for the chapter on RF radiation and how to measure it, and the different meters you could use and all of that. And we did it at Columbia University, and there was like 10 people there.
Oh, I remember that one. I was at that one.
Were you? Yeah.
I was at that one. That was cool.
You remember?
So, but it just was there wasn't that many folks, and to see 40 or 50 people signing up and attending this one, plus the speakers that we were able to attract were top notch. So it was fantastic, and I know everybody is anxious to want to do it again. Good evening, John. How are you? Welcome.
Thanks.
Hey, John.
Hey, John. How are you?
Also, just one other sort of related thing. I'm not sure if anybody caught this last week, but we did a 8-station simulcast with 7 other colleges. And the results from that have been coming in as well.
An 8-station simulcast what?
We had 8 universities and high schools get together and do a 1-day simulcast, using Comrex bricks to link everybody's radio stations.
Oh, wow.
It was us, Post, Brentwood, not Brentwood, Plainview, Bethpage High School, Sasset High School, SUNY New Paltz, Westchester, Rutgers, and William Patterson. So the response for that, over the course of the day, there were over 120 students involved on the air, and then about 200 total in the whole thing between the social media presentation and there was some coverage in Radio World, and Newsday even picked up an article on it. But the sort of ripple effect from that has been, we had no idea we could do this with the technology that we had at the station. We need to know more. How do we find out more about it? So I was at Montclair State last week chatting with some of the students there, and they expect to see some interest in the chapter from. I've been forwarding people to the Office for Applications membership, and Bud and I were chatting about doing like a little informational session with them via Zoom. So there's
who organized it? Just
I
out
did.
of curiosity. Oh, you did it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so can you write something up that we can post on the web page,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
the SBE page? Yeah, that would be great.
Sure. It was cool. And I think the most satisfying thing for me was Rob Taylor from William Patterson called me up, and he goes, I've never had this happen before. He goes, there's a little piece of the right coming off the side of the college is a hill. I always lose my station and I get yours. And he goes, for the first time ever, I didn't hear any difference. He goes, I just watched the RDS change, and that was it.
We have a question for you. Is this something, I'm just throwing this out here, and I don't have the knowledge to know, but I've been involved a little bit with our local, a good sized community college here in the Chicago area. Could this have any possibility in a wildest dreams of a national event? Could we get a couple here and there?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely. It's the response it was not difficult to put together. It was literally a couple of emails. The whole thing started with a couple of with basically the 388.7s in the area getting together, and then Bud had the bright idea to reach out to Val at New Paltz and Radimus over at Westchester, and from that point, then it just sort of steamrolled. I could probably could have had double the number of stations. I just didn't have enough Comrex boxes, but we could accomplish almost the same thing with an IceCast server and a couple of dial-in lines, and say, okay.
Well, you happen to know somebody that has a satellite distribution network that could probably free up a channel that could go nationwide. So
I know a community college here.
Scratching my head. I wonder who that would be. Gee, I wonder who.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be if we did a national thing, it'd be great. And the shadow purpose of this obviously was to attract attention to the value of the college FM licenses by doing something fun. And then the high school students that came, we had about 35 high school students between the two schools that both have FM stations, and we've gotten 26 applications to Hofstra. So that's made.
So where does the IBC fit into this? Are they still around, and are they a thing?
Oh yeah.
The intercollegiate broadcasters.
Yeah, IBS.
Yeah, or IBS. Sorry.
Yeah,
the school I'm thinking of is an award winner in this, so they'd be interested in this in the Chicago area here.
Yeah,
but
we could definitely put something like that together.
But I mean, if so, most colleges were members of IBS, right?
Yeah,
pretty much. They won the award. Yeah.
But I think part of where Andy was going when he kind of mentioned the idea, and everything starts with an idea. And Andy is full of ideas. I don't know whether it's his windshield time or what. But he mentioned it to me, getting all the stations at 88.7. I said, why limit it to 88.7? Call Rad, he's on 88.1, and Val is on 88. She's on 88.7.
Yep.
She's on the air. That's a short time. But it was, this was creating exposure to schools and universities that may only see a radio station as an expense and not a tool. And Andy is a truly proponent, as I've been, on any school that has an FCC license for an FM station. It's huge. There's
Oh,
so much you can
okay.
do with it, but there have been a lot of stations, a lot of these schools have really gone towards podcasting and just doing a stream online or nothing at all. And we saw that come true in the last renewal cycle for license renewal cycle, where there were a bunch of stations that just didn't apply for renewal. They just gave up their FCC license.
No, it's happening a lot.
Well, Conrad, to answer that question, I know we already answered it, but I have this news thing that was released to me by the community college. It's WHCM Harper Radio named the 2023 Best Community College Radio Station by the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System. So he'd
Right.
be a
Well,
so
and
they-
the only reason
your
I brought
members,
up
that was the award.
IBS was that if there was a way to tap into their organization, which is the organization
Sure.
of all of the college stations, you could get the word out to do the national event relatively easy. So, and we're not afraid to partner with people like SMPTE or IEEE or IBS if that's the case. So, just a thought.
Sure.
Yeah.
As long as we get in there with them, yeah.
I think this moved very quickly. Am I right, Andy? Where, I mean, this was a 30-day turn, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did not take, we had started the planning over the summer, but once the other stations got involved, things went very fast. It was not, like I said, it was not complicated, but the most fun I had was putting all the production liners together for it.
You sent me some of those, yeah.
Oh, it was great.
Oh.
All right. Well, I think we've talked out Ennis, and we kind of sort of slipped into some college broadcasting. Bud, do you want to take over and kind of lead us on the program tonight?
Yeah. So the goal here, when we started talking the end of last year, actually it was at the Christmas luncheon, and we sat down and started thinking about what should be on the agenda for meetings for this year. And there's always input welcome in the event that there's something that a member or non-member, anybody that wants to join this group, wants to learn more about, would be more than happy to try to get somebody from that company to present. And we will even do another Thursday night. Usually it's the third Thursday that we meet, but we would do the second Thursday if we had more. I know Conrad has been keeping track of, in fact, I believe the schedule for 2024 is complete. So in this case, one thing that I remember we spoke about was, hey, what about just having a roundtable for anybody that has any questions and any thoughts, whether it's troubleshooting a problem that they have or just some dilemma they run up with. I'm going to throw this one out to jumpstart this because it was actually Cody Hemler, right? Did I pronounce that right, Andy?
Lar.
Yeah, he called me last Friday, and it took the call, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a question for you. Do you know who will take fluorescent lamps or fluorescent bulbs in bulk to dispose of?" Now, me being around a little while, and like many of us did, and when Conrad and I spoke about this earlier, he said the same thing I did. Yeah, well, I went out to the dumpster and broke them in there and let them explode. Can't really do that nowadays. Has anybody had any experience in discarding like fluorescent tubes or other items, electrical?
I forgot to mention the lightsaber. You take the bulb out to the tower too. You can do the lightsaber.
Yes. We all did that. So nobody's had experience, and Cody's not on. What do you?
In Altoona, PA, I pulled out. I switched out a bunch for a church to LED. I had over 100. So Altoona, PA has a e-recycle place, e-waste. So I take them up there. They charged $1 a bulb. Okay. Now, and they said, and the guy was real honest. He said, we don't get any money from that. That's wherever they get rid of them in bulk, that's what they get charged, $1 a bulb. So I paid over $100 to get rid of a truckload of, and those were just 4-foot regular old lights. I don't know if they charge more for 8-foot, but I mean, they got mercury. I mean, I would throw them in a dumpster, but they do have mercury in them, and that's not good. But so I paid. I just paid. I was for a church. I was like, yeah, well, I'll just pay. But other than that, I know down there in Lebanon at LBR, there was a whole pile out on the back porch. I don't know if they're still there or where they went, but someone might know something down there how they disappeared if they did.
It's a good question. Maybe Matt knows, but so was that the town or
That's the city? City of Altoona runs that. However, now the city of Altoona they just hand them off to another company that comes in and gathers them all up, and they charge $1 a bulb to the city of Altoona. So they charge residents $1. So Altoona doesn't make any money on it.
Right.
Or sorry, it's not Altoona, it's Blair County, PA. So that company that takes them was a bulk company. You couldn't probably, I don't know, they might have, maybe you could take them right to the source. I don't know, but I don't know that. I don't know how else to get rid of them. I had never heard anything cheaper than that, but I didn't really look into it.
So, John Frex, I was always told if I had to get rid of anything at Empire, well, from 80 down, just put it next to the freight elevator. It'll be gone the next morning, which is true. But in your experience working in a commercial building with many trades and contractors, when you have stuff like that, are you just hiring somebody to do that, or how does it typically work in that commercial space?
Yeah. For the stations that have moved on from the building and we've been asked to decommission and remove them from the premises. Yes, in some cases we've hired an outside demolition company to come and remove everything, floors to ceilings, and they have been then responsible for that. I do know that the building this Empire does have a process for removal of fluorescent bulbs through their electrical department. So in that case, they also do have an e-waste rule, and a regular collection of e-waste at the building, specifically for UPS batteries and old chassis of processing equipment that you don't want anymore. So the only other thing I can add in a more localized thing is I do know that I believe Home Depot and Lowe's have both had collection bins for CFLs, the compact fluorescent bulbs that most homeowners might have in fixtures. So, but I'm not sure whether, I know the bin really isn't set up for a 4-foot bulb. So it's kind of I don't have a good answer for you, but in the commercial environment, we've taken material to a regular recycling center, a trash center, and things of that nature, and they usually have a method for sorting those items separately.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I wish Cody was here to tell us how he made out with that, but it's all good. So, anybody else have any questions, or that this brain trust, which is varied from major market to smaller markets, that somebody be able to? No questions.
Well, I have a question about RDS and Zeta. But has anybody had issues with Zeta spitting out RDS metadata, specifically how like I have an RDS, my RDS machine at RHU, and an RCS can even really figure this out. It's just not outputting any metadata. So I'm curious if anybody had that same experience.
So obviously, now I haven't done a Zeta, but as Troy knows, Lord knows, I've done so many, setting up exports in NextGen over the past period of time here. But have you checked the ports and what is leaving?
Yeah, ports are fine because I can send it manually if I do an RT broadcast. like a shell, I can make the transmitter, or not the transmitter, but the RDS receiver at the transmitter, change the metadata by doing it manually. If I send it through hyperterminal.
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
I can't get it to, unless I want to sit there and type every song title every time a song changes. That's not going to help me much. So seems like the issue is coming out of RCS. And RCS has been in the machine a few times. They're just kind of like, oh, we'll get back to you on it.
Andy, have you checked out that that computer's internal firewall isn't blocking it?
Yeah, but I've been doing it from that computer. So when I do the hyperterminal, it works. So I'm assuming the data is getting out, but I could check that. That's not a bad idea. I could check that firewall rule and see if it's blocking the software. That's a possibility.
Is it going TCP or UDP?
TCP.
Try opening it for both.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're going to have a some sort of router on the side up at the tower, right? So
no router at the tower. It's a fiber RTEL fiber link. So everything gets rendered down at the TOC and then sent up on fiber and breaks out into a little switch. W switch.
So you're just bringing a whole subnet up there?
Yeah, there's a subnet being generated on the Wheatstone network that has a cross path into that other switch. So everything else seems to make it up there just fine. It's just this one thing that's not passing.
So Joe Marshall, who some people may remember from Harris and Gates Air, I was just talking with him about an hour ago about data coming out of a next gen, and that's kind of a direction. And he gave me a program, Hercules, I guess, to look at. And he gave me, you have to spell it out, otherwise you get all the Disney stuff. But there's some sort of program that you can see exactly, you got to troubleshoot which end is bad. Is it not coming out of Zeta, or is it not making it up to the, well, it is making it up to the tower because you can hyper terminal in from the studio?
Yes.
And you're using the same exact port to get into it from the studio?
Yep. So port, whatever the Nortel default port is, 9001 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
5001.
I just put into the chat the Hercules utility. It's wonderful.
That's it. Thank you.
You can send and receive. I've used it for many years.
Oh, thank you, Dave. That's one.
Thanks, David.
That's my project for tonight.
It's putty on steroids. That's the only way I can explain it.
Okay.
So, anybody have star guides? Mosley, I'm sorry, Starlinks. I wrote star guides. Starlink STLs. And what are you guys doing for repairs on those? Who have you entrusted? Unless you're a big company like Conrad and just put them on the CapEx list.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, we replace them when they break, but we have a lot of them in service still. Unfortunate.
I wouldn't say unfortunately. I think they were built pretty well. If I remember correctly, a lot of problems are power supplies, and weren't there one or two crystals in there that would drift, which would cause them to be off frequency of something, and they wouldn't sync up or something.
More and more, we're going to the IP 100s, 200s, whatever from Gates Air.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're using those over the internet as well as ubiquity links between the tower sites and the studio.
If I remember correctly, with the Starlinks, 90% of the time it was the capacitors and the power supply.
Yes. Yes. And they are repairable. And I know that Kevin Wynn, formerly a tech at Mosley, does, it's Wintronics, him and his wife. They're still servicing those units. I just know that there's probably some other people that are doing that as well. I mean, I know Dave Broth would repair those in his group as also. But
it reminds me of Bob Moore, who used to do all of the PRNE repairs. Remember?
Yeah.
Yes. And then he ended up with basically all of that analog PR&E.
All the inventory. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
He kept our boards running for like 15 years longer than they should have.
Fortronics.
Yep.
All right, so we're talking about legacy. Who thinks, I know Troy's going to raise his hand here, who thinks they have the oldest transmitter running out there? Or console? Oh,
1960 RCA.
Yeah. That wins. We had
Yeah.
two 19.
There's olders out there, but
We had two 1950 RCAs running in Buffalo. One was like a 55 and the other was a 56, and the 55 was the backup to the 56. When I took this job, that was like 5 years ago. They were still on the air. So
that's amazing.
they're now replaced with a box that's like this big. So.
but I will say one thing. So it's a 1960 original for the station, original for that frequency. It's we got a BTA 5R, 5 kilowatt AM. And I've been there 30 years. Okay. It is the most reliable transmitter I have ever worked on or ever had. It is the best built. It has the original blower in it, Westinghouse. I never put bearings in it in the 30 years I've been there, and it's still running, and it runs 24/7.
Oh, and it'll run into a dead short too, right?
Yes, it will. It's a welder, and I've run it into a dead short.
Yeah, so have I.
It makes its own path. Yes.
Yep.
Now I got a 1R too. That's the backup. I'm not real. I got. They're all right, but they're not like the 5R. Boy, that thing. And it's still running to this day. It does need tubes, and it takes a lot of tubes.
Have you had trouble getting parts?
I have never needed a part that was unavailable. You know, there's nothing real other than, you know, someday tube sockets or something, but it has very common parts in it, and there's nothing really, like RCA went out in 83 or something. I don't know. I never needed any part I couldn't find easily somewhere else or on eBay. A lot of eBay parts, like caps and caps and resistors and contactors and relays and transformers. I just blew a bias transformer on it about a year ago. Found one on eBay. Not the right thing, but made the right voltage and current. So primary was 120 volts instead of 240. So what did they do?
If I remember when RCA went out and GE had taken over and you needed parts and they were still supplying some parts, they would arrive in GE consumer parts boxes.
Yeah.
The same box you would get a toaster part for. They would send you the transmitter part.
Now, like nothing ever major on it blew up. Like it got the original mod transformer, plate transformer, and then 30 years, I have done very little work on that thing. But I'm someday soon, it ain't gonna work no more. And I was just looking at it. So it used to use 4-125 drivers to drive the finals, and it had 4 of them. And I had switched it like 20 some years ago to 4-400s, and it should have new driver tubes. And I think I'd looked them up, and I was like, holy crap, we're not going to be able to afford them. They're non-rebuildables. And we just bought the rebuilds, modulators, PAs, 2 modulators, 2 PAs. And I think it was, I think it was 4,000 something. And I was like, holy crap. But they last a long time. That thing will run and run and run till it'll run for years with those. It'll run 3-4 years with finals and modulators. It's really, but someday it's just not going to work. But that's the oldest one I got in service.
Troy, between your console and your transmitter, what museum do you work at?
It's called Seven Mountains Media. And we got a bunch of old stuff. mostly from the 70s and 80s. I got a Harris or Gates Harris 20H3 FM. That's a 20 kilowatt. That predates the that predates the K series KFMs. That was probably built in the 60s. That transmitter is a pile of junk. It was, I'm not going to I mean, it wasn't their fault, but it was bought used from Armstrong back when, at the very end of when Armstrong got into business from New York. I mean, Armstrong from New York got into business by buying old transmitters and refurbishing them and selling them. And a lot of them went to South America.
Mhm.
And this was, and they don't do that anymore, but that's how they started in business. But this was
Yeah,
one
I
of the
literally
last
lived-
ones.
I lived a half a mile away from their shop on
Oh yeah,
Split Rock
Marcellus?
Road in Syracuse. Yeah.
Oh, okay. With Sanan and the gang. I guess Kevin's still there, but it is the most unreliable transmitter I have ever had. And a part of that is any transmitter that seems, was used, it was retuned, wasn't done right, things weren't right. But if you get an old transmitter on the factory tune, they seem to work a lot better. But that one's still working.
Have you done a study to see if what the savings would be if you went solid state and stuff?
No, that's not my department. I worked up until a year ago. One of our owners was an engineer and he was a transmitter guy and he knew his stuff. I mean, he knew. And the only reason he liked the old transmitters because they were from his era and he knew I could fix them. So there was no reason to replace them. And we never even discussed, electrical savings, electricity. They didn't care about that. All they cared about was large purchases and how not to make them. So for 29 years, nothing got replaced. And if it did, it was with sometimes good stuff and sometimes usually the cheapest stuff they could find. And now it's but I'm still running Mosley 606s, which I like. I can repair them. We got a couple still in service. I can fix them. They only got, they're easy to fix. We're running all analog. Well, not the whole company. I can't speak for the whole company because haven't been to the whole company, but we run mostly analog everything. Console wise, I'm in really good shape. We don't have anything that old. We had some old BMXs in service, PR&E. Of course, they were built extremely well, but I don't think they're in service anymore. We're running Airwave PR&E consoles at the very end. We bought them in 1999. We bought a whole bunch. At the very end of PR&E ownership, before they sold it to Harris, we bought the Airwave analogs, and they're still in service. And I have like zero problems with them other than the little light bulbs burn out with the on button.
You didn't have the static shock problem with them?
I had zero problems with those
we had
consoles.
static in the studio that would like shut them down.
PR&E.
The gray airwaves. Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
You're kidding me.
It was terrible.
You got to ground them, Conrad.
We grounded them.
We grounded them and the announcers.
never-
It still didn't work.
Now I've heard
carpets out.
Yeah, we
I
tried
heard,
everything.
I heard
Humidifiers.
I heard the same story about other types of newer consoles, but I never heard anything
Yeah,
like
no,
that about a PR&E. They are rock
We
solid.
bought those and
I don't
they were just constantly off the air, or the announcer would like move in the studio and the fader would shut off, so the
That's
music would
bizarre.
go off the air. Yeah, it was bad.
Sounds like installation problem, but I'm not going to get into that.
Thank you, because I installed it.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Wait, if it's something you installed, I think it's gotten changed out by now, Conrad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But we have
the one thing I could say about the Airwaves and also the BMXs, The one thing that kept those things running even longer, if you replaced all the light bulbs with LCDs,
Yes,
it kept it going even longer.
yes,
Love those love the BMXs,
yes.
but I
There
love the
is a,
BMX 2s more than the 3s.
I don't remember what we had in State College PBA, but they were from the 80s. They were extremely well built. BMX, we had a radio mixer. PRE made a radio mixer, they called it.
Yeah, I
Big
was
ass
not
board.
a fan of that one.
I don't remember what happened to that one either. That one was like brand new because it was hardly used. That was 99. It almost looked brand new.
So it's kind of funny, talking about all of these consoles, and the Airwave was the last one, the last design, which I think had Richard Maddox written all over it, out in California, in Vista, if I remember. And then everything came back, or they tried to bring it back to in Cincinnati, but there was a big change with that PRE board from the original, and just how they did things, and things became more disposable. But it's funny, remember all of the wiring that had to be done in the adapter boxes? And now, Andy, how hard was it when we built out, SUNY New Paltz there with Axia up there? I mean, it was just the hardest part was getting Cat5 cable through a wall where they didn't run conduit.
Yeah, that the studio built itself basically.
Yeah. So this is a whole new era now, and we reminisce about this, and problems are less now. I thought there would be more problems with the Axia surfaces because they seem, I don't always say cheap, but they just seem less rugged than a BMX. And they are, but I think people have become accustomed to that.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. Even though I might love the BMX, there was one thing I hated about them, because whenever you had to work on them, those damn Molex connectors would leave your hands bloody.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I still think to this day, the power supplies of the BMX run circles around the power supplies that are used on the Axia stuff.
Oh, without a doubt, because what's in Axia, it's just stuff that, it's switching power supplies that you can actually go and find out on, on Amazon or eBay or whatever. But
yeah, well, the PRE power supplies were like 50 pounds a piece. They were amazing. It took up a whole rack.
At least. If you had the double,
if you had the double, it was great, especially with the emergency, the failover switch that would switch over to them. It was a great idea.
So I want to switch towards, and really this was called troubleshooting, and it was more just what we're doing now. But during site inspections, there are a couple of things, and I was hoping that the group can contribute some knowledge on that. I'm going to call upon John Frex again, because he brought up a very good point. When you're doing a site inspection, it may not just be looking at readings, and it may not just be looking at or listening to a fan, a blower and a transmitter or something like that. But it may be walking around and running your hands over rigid line, or just looking. Now John's observation in this story that I'm prepping him for here, this was an issue with line pressure, and the end user can remain nameless, but it's just as you go around looking at things in the site, whether it's temperature, whether it's line pressure, is your dehydrator running? Is it not? Is it running, but it's not making pressure because it doesn't make pressure anymore? Yes, I heard you, Matt Witzel. And we've had a couple of RFS units fail where they're running and you put your finger on it, no pressure, and they're not that old. But John, tell us your adventure when you were troubleshooting or looking at why you saw no pressure on a system and how you isolated it.
So yeah, very recently we were looking at an FM system with multiple outputs to the main antenna and outputs to a couple of combined stations, and it appeared all of a sudden on an overnight work session that the entire system was just flat, and the compressor was running, and just nothing was happening to the system. So we valved a few things off, and the compressor just still didn't want to make any pressure in the system. And all right, so we determined that the compressor was probably bad. All right, well, so we have a redundant, so we put the redundant on there, and it ran for a couple of days, pressurized the system just fine, this, that, and the other thing, and then about a week later or so, we noticed once again the system was not holding pressure the way it's supposed to. And again, we started valving off the couple of combined stations, and finally determined that a couple of things had happened. One, against the back of the original compressor, which had been in service for probably at least a half year or so, as we did rotate them on a regular basis to keep the hours equal, we found that two of the pieces of the polyethylene hose had rested against the back of the cabinet and actually chafed a small opening in the hose. And it's one of those things where you're like, do I hear something hissing? Do I or don't I? You get the compressor off, and yeah, there was this tiny little hiss. Okay, so like, good, all right, tape that over. That was a temporary repair, and you put it back in service. But something still, it's not making pressure to the system that it's supposed to. And once again, you go along and valve things off, and then once you open them, and you find there's one particular station that went from having pressure to no pressure, having pressure to no pressure when you valve it off. And I'm like, whoa, that's like a total leak there somewhere. So you follow the hosing, put hands on, you follow it down, and when we got down to where the gas barrier was, where the pressure inlet is feeding the line, and hands on, and it's like, whoa, I can probably cook an egg on this pressure insertion, gas block. And it's like, this is a serious problem. So, it's on air, the station's on the air. And so we contacted the station, and they said, oh, ooh, wow, thanks for letting us know about that. And they went through a couple of different, scenarios. They took some temperature readings on the line. We expanded the search to see if it was something a little bit further away from the gas block, either lower or higher, all the kind of troubleshooting things. But eventually the station, had to do an overnight, had to go to their offsite. They came in and removed the gas block and a section of the line, and did in fact find that the Teflon center disc that normally would keep that gas block sealed had actually overheated. Some of the interior part of the transmission line had suffered some really good overheating. There was no particular discussion about what might have really caused the problem per se. But it was definitely obvious that one gas block was much hotter than the other couple of combined station gas blocks that were nearby to it. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to ask yourself, why did the compressor fail? And even though we had a pretty good idea that it was just its time on the first one, as soon as the second one failed, this was something a lot more severe. And maybe we should have done an overall inspection of each of the gas blocks, even more so than the valving and metering, pressure metering distribution showed us. That we might have caught this a little bit earlier, but certainly the fact that we caught it at this juncture meant that it didn't affect the station in a oh my God, it's the middle of the night, and we're off the air and we don't know why type of problem. So it was
Well, it
able
would
to
have
be
been middle of
addressed.
the day on a
Right.
Friday.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it was able to be addressed. They, did a scheduled transfer to their offsite, made the repair, and so the system is back up and running. Meanwhile, we have to send 2 dehydrators out for repair. Thank goodness there is still a company out in California that will repair the Sahara 2 rack mount dehydrators. They are a fairly high volume dehydrator for their size. If you wanted to try to replace that volume type dehydrator with a current piece of equipment, let's just say from Dielectric, it runs you about 10 grand. So the repair cost on the Sahara 4 is I don't know, about $3,000 or something in that neighborhood. And we'll see when we get them back. They have a warranty to them, obviously, when they're repaired and shipped back to us from California. So the shipping cost is a few $100s, but in terms of needing to repair 2 of them and not actually purchasing them. Now, that all being said, there is a big push these days to a nitrogen generator. And they're becoming more and more popular, more and more available, and less expensive. It kind of all depends on the amount of line you've got, and whether you want to continue putting dried air into it. Some desiccating systems require change out of crystals, which is the method that they use for getting the moisture out of the air. So that's a maintenance issue. You need to go over that once in a while. As I said, the hydrators that we were using, we were rotating in terms of their hours, because eventually a dehydrator does have a service life and it will need to be rebuilt. And some of the larger Andrew and or now Dielectric units have certain, requirements for rebuild kits, whether it be for lubrication or whether it be for seals. So these type of things should be noted. You should take hour readings on your dehydrators if that's what you're using, and look at the recommended service intervals for them so that you can be prepared with the spare parts and a time to take it offline and do the servicing on them that's needed. So that's the story I got for you at the moment, Bud. I hope that covers the topic for you.
Well, and we can close on this because this is something that I learned early on in my career, and in meeting John and meeting Conrad and many of you guys that are on here. There are a few of you I don't know, but I'd always tell guys that work for me, or whether directly under DRE or with Seven Mountains, we're doctors. We're just like that doctor. They just happen to be experienced in the human body. When my wife gave birth to our son, and the doctor and I were talking, and he's asking about how to clear the side of his house, because with the front end loader, it's like, you can get that close to, and I'm thinking, my goodness, you were just like inside my wife, and now you're asking me, I consider a simple question, but we're doctors. We're specialized, whether it's IT that we have an expertise in, or RF experience. I know that if you were to get George Cole into the corner and talk to him about RF troubleshooting, isolating, finding interference, he could tell a lot of stories. He's a doctor at that. Rob Johnstone in working with Motorola, doing the same thing on the RF side and even on the IT side, and Troy and Matt with what we've done within Seven Mountains. So don't lose respect of yourselves. We're all doctors. We're experienced in what we do here, and we should be treated that way. And you will get treated that way if you present that way. If any company can get away with not spending money, they most likely will. But then there are some that are proactive, and I didn't get Conrad to tell us how he does all of his prioritizing on CapEx. But the one thing that he did share is, once the name Energyonics comes up, or RCA, or something, then you're getting a replacement transmitter. But sometimes you have to ask for it, but earn that respect, because you are doctors, and what you guys do in troubleshooting and keeping stations on the air is immense. So
Bud, I have a thing I just want to show the group here. So if for those of you who don't know, I'm also a ham radio operator, and I'm looking for the. I think if I share this, you guys see this screen?
Okay. What do you want? You just want to put video up on the?
Yep.
No, I'm hearing
Andy, mute yourself.
somebody in the background. Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is actually, I'm going to find him and mute him. I know that we're.
He's muted.
Okay, good. Thank you. Not really. So this screen is a lot of the ham radio operator groups that are available on this groups.io, which is a free platform. And, you know, this meeting that we just got through doing made me realize that, you know, there could be the potential for us to create a group. You can do it for free and have up to 50 members in it, that essentially would give us a sort of a forum to throw out an idea and see if anybody else in the Brain Trust has the answer, and to sort of collaborate. So this is a Parks on the Air group that we have, and you can see the messages that have been posted here. If you drill down, you can see, you know, Peter put up a thing here, and other folks, you know, commented on it and had, you know, some suggestions and things like that. So for what it's worth, and then you can hashtag stuff. So if there's like, you know, if dehydrator, like, you know, John was talking about, is an item, you could hashtag it with that, and people could search for that search term. So anyway, just a thought, that if we wanted to, if we wanted to, you know, collaborate further and people wanted to join in, you know, it's not Facebook, it's not Discord, you know, it's just an email reflector. And then you can go onto the web page that I just showed you and, you know, search for things if you wanted to search through a database. But, you know, I kind of like the collaborative sort of atmosphere here, and, you know, maybe we can take it to another level if we want. So just a thought.
Yeah, Conrad, I like that thought. I mean, I'm sitting here as a marketing guy thinking, wow, I can see the future, the SBE 15, Ask the Engineer, or the Dr. Bud show, and maybe even a sponsorship at the beginning, or saying, you know, welcome guys, and maybe open up a monthly meeting or whatever it is, bi-monthly, to a 15, 20 minutes, whatever, where someone gets the link, they can ask our guys live, you know, and it could be very unique to us. And
sure.
So, you know, something along that line.
What we do is we're expected to know a lot about everything, and that gets difficult at times, because you know, if you take your car in for service to the car dealership, you know, they know the Ford product, or they know whatever brand. And granted, there's a lot of similarities, but sometimes you have to know deep in it. It's like earlier, Troy knows his RCA really well, and he's extremely comfortable with that. There, you know, we're a different breed in that.
Yeah, I see
so much. Some of the stuff that before the meeting that Conrad and I were talking about, as far as, and we didn't even touch on like cybersecurity, which is a whole nother topic that we can talk about, because it's something that scares me a little bit with our company, but this is something that falls into his realm as well. So, you know, we've all got responsibility that's pretty broad, and you know, we should respect that, as well as the people we work with. So
good. All right, well, with that, we're 4 minutes over, so I'll basically thank everybody for joining us tonight, and you know, Jeff will do his editing, and I'm sure make this available on video for folks later on. So with that, I'll let you all go have dinner. So thanks for joining us tonight. And we'll see you, well, hopefully we'll see you in person in New York for the holiday party on the 7th. So see you then.
Thanks for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to SBE 15 New York City.